This is Cult Confessions with Christy and Josie. Welcome to our podcast.
Trigger warning. May contain themes of religious trauma and sexual abuse. Disclaimer. All information in this podcast is our opinion based on our experiences. We do not purport any of this content to be inherently factual and believe that each individual has the right to draw their own conclusion.
I'm Christy.
And I'm Josie.
And today we're going to be sharing Josie's story. So if you want to just go ahead and start with how you were first introduced to the IFB.
Yeah, I'm an OG. I was born and raised IFB. I've been going to church since before I was born. My mom grew up IFB. My dad didn't join the church until his early 20s. I think he was 22 when he got saved and joined Bible Baptist. So they met in church and started going there together, got married, all that good stuff. But yeah, so I've been going to church since before I was born. And we only went to one church in Mount Vernon, where I'm from. It was Bible Baptist. We had a really good pastor there. I really liked him. His daughters both babysat me, and they actually live not super far away from me now, so I've seen them recently. I'm still, I still have a lot of respect for that family and a lot of love for that family. I think they're really good people. But that was the only church that we went to before Faith, and then we moved to Spokane when I was 8, and then started going to Faith there.
Okay. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how your experience was at Faith?
It was very different. It was kind of like IFB culture shock, honestly. Granted, I was a kid at the time, but I don't remember at Bible Baptist having, all of these missionaries that we supported and all of these like IFB kind of functions. Like Bible Baptist felt very truly independent. We didn't really do a lot of things with other churches. We just did things like within our own church family. Faith was very different. It was a lot bigger. First of all, the congregation was like at least double the size. The building was huge in comparison to Bible Baptist. It was crazy. Faith had a school. It was very different. So yeah, it was definitely some IFB culture shock going from this, little rural church in a small city to a bigger church in a bigger city for sure. I remember a lot of things being different, but the first couple things that stood out to me were like the dress code. We were allowed to wear pants in Mount Vernon. We didn't wear them on Sundays because Sunday best, but the pastor's wife wore pants. My family wore pants as long as they weren't too tight. We could wear jeans. That was not an issue. It wasn't even anything I really thought about.
How old were you when you started going to Faith?
I was 8, so we moved in December of 2006, and my birthday's in May, so I was like 8.5 when we started going to Faith.
Okay, so it started very quickly after going to Faith then?
Yeah. So the abuse started while I was still 8. It started maybe 2 or 3 months after we moved to Faith. So one of the big changes from Bible Baptist to Faith was hugging. It was really normal at Faith to just hug people. The girls that I made friends with that were my age, they would regularly hug the adults, men and women, and older teenagers. And that was very different than Bible Baptist. I don't ever remember hugging my pastor or anybody but my parents or, my friends my own age.
Yeah.
And So, I mean, I remember being like really weirded out about hugging somebody, but it was so normal. Everybody was, doing it. And yeah, so that's kind of the first interaction I had with Daniel was after I had been there for a few weeks. I went up to him after a service and gave him a hug because one of my friends did. And that was totally normal.
Do you want to talk about how it all started like after that? Like what happened after that? So that was the beginning of
Yeah.
it. What
And I
kind of
mean, there, I mean, it went on for so long. There are so many gaps in my memory about it. So we used to stay after church, like between the morning service and the evening service, with a bunch of other families. And we would, make food or bring food and just kind of have like lunch there in between services and play some games. And the older boys would go play basketball in the gym and that kind of stuff. There were a few families that stayed over pretty consistently, and mine was one of them because we did that a lot at Bible Baptist, and that was something I remember my mom really, really enjoying at Bible Baptist. Um, my mom is a stereotypical, like, talks too much after church, and my dad is a stereotypical, come on, honey, let's get in the car, kind of person. So this was kind of the happy medium. Was, we would stay and we would get food, so my dad would be happy, and mom could have her, little social time with all of her friends. And yeah, I mean, it was fun until it wasn't. um,
Yeah.
so it started during that. The church is a really big building and it was quite empty for, several hours between the services besides the people that were there. Um,
And it was just a
it's,
couple families that would stay?
yeah, like, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 on average. So, I
Okay.
mean, 20, maybe 30 people. We have big families in the IFB. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so it wasn't like a lot of people. Um, so Daniel started just giving me a lot of hugs, and that's how it started. And I really liked that. I mean, I was really weirded out about it at first, but I liked the attention, and I thought that, I thought he liked me, and I was, excited to see him every day and get a hug. I didn't really get a lot of hugs at home. Um, Without going into like a lot of details because that's my parents' private business. My dad had some PTSD that he never fully dealt with until after I left the house. I think my mom did too from their childhoods, and we were not a super close family. I mean, they told me they loved me, but we were not very affectionate kinds of people. So, I mean, that attention and the hug felt good. Like somebody was excited to see me, somebody was looking forward to seeing me, and that made me happy.
And when you say that he liked you, or you thought that he liked you, is
Yeah.
that just like in a platonic way?
No, no, I thought that, I mean,
No.
now, granted, I was 8 years old, so I mean, my perception of relationships was very skewed and, rose colored glasses and all that. But I thought that, I thought he had a crush on me.
Okay.
And
So what happened after that?
so he would start just finding times for us to be alone. Um, at first, a lot of that was relatively very innocent. Like, he would ask me to help him carry something like up or down the stairs, and we would be alone on the stairs together. And then at a certain point, he would take me into the church library and turn the lights off, and it would just be the two of us. He would kiss me, and he would tell me that he loved me. He would tell me that he wanted to marry me. I sat on his lap a lot because he asked me to. He would touch me in a lot of places. And yeah, that went on every Sunday for a few months. For, 6-8 months at least. To the best that I can remember. And it was a lot of the
So
same thing every time.
you were 8 years old, and how old was he?
15. His birthday's in January, so he would have been 15 when it started, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know if he did this with anyone else, or was it just he was very
I
like
think it was
hyper
just
focused
me.
specifically on you?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
really interesting because he didn't show me any like affection or attention that I can remember like in public, other than just like the
Hmm.
hugs that he gave everybody. But there was no special interest when we were around other people. And then when we were
Yeah.
alone, he would, say that he loved me and tell me that he was going to marry me, and all of those kinds of things. I don't think that he did it to anybody else. And I've asked some like my two best friends. I've asked them directly, and they both said that nothing ever happened, and I believe them. I know that
Yeah.
he has hurt other people after me, but I don't think that he was doing it to anybody else at the same time.
What were his like techniques, I guess, to get you alone?
It didn't take much, to be honest. I was a pretty easy target. I was lonely and I missed home because we had just moved. I was homesick. I missed my friends. And I wasn't very close with my family, so I didn't really hang out with them a lot. I I like to be alone. When I was a kid, I was often, just sitting somewhere with my nose in a book. I like reading. So it wasn't really hard to get me alone because I was very used to being alone. And that's not necessarily alone in a bad way. I was just not a very social kid. I like my books and that's what I did most of my childhood was read.
Was there ever a time that you guys were noticed or got caught or anything?
Yeah. Um so when I was 9, after this had happened for like I said probably 6-8 months. And I there are parts of this that I remember, and then my mom kind of helped fill in some gaps when I talked to her about this, a little while ago. So it was one of those Sunday afternoons, and after that had happened in the church library, Daniel goes into the kitchen at the church where his dad and my mom are, talking and cooking and whatever. And it was very obvious that Daniel had an erection. And so Daniel's dad kind of like took him aside and was going to talk to him. And Daniel told his dad that he had been with me. So my mom started to go look for me. She didn't know where I was. Um, she found me and she asked me what happened. And I remember telling her just that I was sitting on his lap. I didn't tell her about the kissing. I didn't tell her about the touching. I didn't tell her about any of that. Because I liked him. I didn't want him to get in trouble. He was nice to me. I thought that this was him being nice to me. And the things that he was doing, it made me very uncomfortable, but I thought it was what I was supposed to do when you, like, I thought you just did that when you liked somebody. And I liked him. I had a crush on him. I didn't know any better.
Yeah. What
So,
happened
so my mom
after
was
you guys
upset.
were found out?
My mom was upset. And she told Pastor Boyle. And my mom said that she wanted an apology from Daniel. And Pastor Boyle agreed. And he told Roy, Daniel's dad, to get him to apologize. And a few weeks went by and nothing happened. So my mom talked to Pastor again. And it was after, I think it was a Wednesday night service. Pastor brought us all outside. It was, Pastor was there, my mom and me. I don't remember if my dad was there or not. And then Daniel and his dad. And basically just kind of forced Daniel to apologize. I remember Daniel looking at his feet and saying sorry. Like, very, like, you could tell he wasn't sorry. But I guess that was good enough. And we just walked away. So it stopped for a month, maybe. Maybe a couple months. I don't remember exactly. Again, there are a lot of gaps. And then it started up again.
And it was the
And
same thing, like it was
it was a lot of the
it
same
happened
thing.
with like underneath the same like circumstances. So like
Yeah, it was a little bit
you were
different.
both there on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, it was still Sundays and it was still in between services, but it was a little bit different. After this, we didn't really stay after church for like the potlucks and stuff.
Okay.
But my mom played piano for the choir, and Daniel's dad was the choir director. So they would come in early on Sundays before the night service to do choir practice. So I
Okay.
mean, Daniel was
So
there with his parents, and I was there with mine.
so do you think that was kind of like your parents trying to take some action in like the situation by
I'd
like
like to
not
think
staying?
so. Yeah, because we
Okay.
still did some stuff after with a couple different families, but we would do it at their houses instead. Like we would go, like we had a family that lived pretty close to us, and we would go home and change into our play clothes and go to their house instead of staying at the church.
Okay. And your mom had to come earlier just because she was the piano player at the
Right,
church.
right.
And where would you be during that time?
Playing with Daniel in the gym. So our church has a gym that's like kind of the bridge between the school side and the church side. It's a very convoluted building. Um,
Yeah, it's super weird
it's super weird. You've been there,
the way that building is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so during choir practice, my brother and sister and I would go and play in the gym, and Daniel would be there. He was on our school's basketball team, so he would practice, and like I would get the ball for him and all of that kind of thing. The touching and stuff started again with like playing keep away. So I mean, he would be like, see how, he would give me the ball and then chase me, and he would pick me up and like tickle me to get me to drop it. Um, and I mean, it was not that that's okay, but I mean, relatively innocent given everything else that happened. Um, but after a while, he would intentionally throw the ball down the stairs. Um, there's a set of blue stairs that lead down to bathrooms um, on the school side, and he would throw the ball down the stairs and ask me to help him go get it. Um, and I mean, it was very obvious that it was intentional. I don't know how nobody else picked up on that. But I mean, it was mostly just my younger siblings and I, so I guess that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Daniel's older brother Andrew would be there, and usually Daniel wouldn't do anything if Andrew was there. So I was always
Okay.
really happy when Andrew was there, because we could just play basketball and it would be easy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then if Andrew ever left to do something, almost immediately Daniel would throw the ball down the stairs. And that was kind of like our signal to go down by the bathrooms where there wasn't anybody around.
Did you feel like you had to do it?
Yeah. One time I didn't. And I remember being like, I really don't want to. Like, and he threw the ball down the stairs, and I pretended like I didn't see it. And he went to go get it, and after a few minutes, he came back and he asked me where I was. And I said, oh, I didn't see you throw it down. And so a few minutes later, like, he made sure that I saw it and threw it down the stairs again. Um, and so I went down the stairs, and he spanked me because he was mad at me and told me not to disobey him again. And and it was more, like, more touching. Um, he didn't kiss me very often. Um, like, not on the mouth. Like, he would kiss my forehead or my cheeks or other places on my body, but not very often on the mouth, which I don't know. I thought was weird. I still don't know why. Um, but he would move my hands like over his body where he wanted me to touch. So his chest, his arms, his back, mostly. Um, then his private parts as well. And that went on for years. That didn't stop until this, like, a month after I turned 13. So that went on for like 4 years.
And no one ever like checked in on you guys ever again after the first situation?
No. I I don't know, looking back, I wonder if somebody noticed something and just didn't say anything because I feel like it was so obvious.
It sounds like it would be, like it's like having you guys be left together, like in the
Yeah,
gym, and like having something happen before, you would think that they would not allow you guys to be by yourselves, or like not allow Daniel to be around you.
right. Yeah, you would think.
So what happened when you were 13?
So when I was 13, I went to go visit my aunt and uncle up in North Idaho and spend the summer with them. So my mom's brother and his wife, and they had two kids at that time, um, who were older than me. They were both older than me, and I really really liked them. I really looked up to both of them. Mostly, like I was friends with my cousin Sammy because we were pretty close to the same age. I think she was like 1 or 2 years older than me. Amber was a few years older than me. And so, I mean, she was much more grown up than me. And I really, really looked up to her. And um, she asked me, how things were going and if there was any boy that I had a crush on or anybody that I liked. And I said, yeah, I have a boyfriend. That's what I thought it was. And she was like, oh, do you now? And so she started asking me questions about him. And Amber had, unfortunately, been previously sexually abused. So she recognized a lot of the signs. So she kind of very quickly figured out what was happening. And she went to her mom, who I'm not sure exactly what her job was, but she worked in some capacity that made her a mandated reporter. And she's like, hey, I think you need to talk to Josie. And so my Aunt Janet sat me down, we talked, and she asked me a bunch of questions about what was going on. And at that point, I felt really scared because I had already gotten him in trouble once and I didn't want to get him in trouble again. So I felt really bad as I was saying all of these things, but it also felt like really good to not have to keep it inside.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't said anything to anybody for 4 years. So my Aunt Janet, recognized what was going on, obviously, especially considering how much older Daniel was than me.
How old was he at this point when you
He
were
would have
13?
been, I believe he would have been 20, 19 or 20. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And did you tell them that, like, how old he was?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I justified it because my dad is 7 years older than my mom. Now, they didn't meet until they were both in their 20s, which is very different. Um, but I was like, that was, I guess, normal for me. So, so it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But my aunt mandated reporters, so she reported it and told my parents what was going on.
What happened after that?
So much. I honestly, it's so blurry. The everything that happened. So this was in June, July when this all came out, and Daniel's court date wasn't until November. So,
So, because she reported it, you guys had to report it. Like, did she report it to the police?
yeah.
Okay.
So in that 6 months, I got talked to by pastor several times. And it
About what?
was well, it was counseling, I think is what they intended it to be. But I didn't really feel like I could talk to him. I mean, he was a male, so that was uncomfortable for me. And he would ask me questions about, what exactly Daniel did. And I didn't tell him.
Well, I feel like that's super like inappropriate to tell your pastor. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to tell my pastor any of those things. I mean, it's hard alone.
I didn't
Like,
want to
it's
tell
hard enough.
anybody. I didn't,
Yeah,
I
it's
was,
hard enough to say it in general and like,
yeah. I never told my mom everything until 6 months ago. I remember lying to the detective because, there was a police report filed. So I had a detective, we had to go down to the police station and I had to like give a statement.
was that right after? Like, right after it was
Yeah, it was,
reported or
it was
whatever?
a few weeks after I got home. Yeah.
Okay. You had to go down and you had to talk to police about
Yeah.
what he was doing to you.
Yeah.
And you didn't feel comfortable to tell them the full truth.
No, I was so scared because I still didn't really understand what had happened fully.
Hmm.
And I was still in this
Yeah.
headspace where I wanted to protect him, and I felt so bad that I had screwed up and that I had gotten him in trouble again, and I had messed things up for him again. So the detective asked me a lot of questions, and I remember lying to her. Like, she asked me if he ever touched me anywhere, and I said no. It was just kissing, or it was, just like arms or back or whatever. I think I remember telling her that he touched my breast, but not anything beyond that.
Hmm.
And she would ask questions like, did he make you touch him anywhere? I said no. And that was a lie. She asked if he ever exposed himself to me, and I said no. That was a lie. And Daniel was still at church. Still had to see him every week until he was sentenced or whatever, I guess. So I felt so
Were your
bad.
parents there with you?
During which
Were your
part?
parents with you? Like, were your parents with you when you were at the police station, like talking to
My
the.
mom went with me, but the detective asked if I wanted her to stay or go, and I remember saying I wanted her to go. So she wasn't there when I actually gave my statement.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And after, so you're telling me that after he was reported and after you went in and told your truth or whatever you felt you could tell,
Yeah.
nothing was done with Daniel in the church?
Not for a while. He was still there for a little bit. Eventually, he left, and he left
What
for a
did
year.
what did the pastor do, if anything?
I I did counseling with him.
Did Daniel
I
do
don't know.
counseling with him?
I don't know. I know that Daniel was required to complete some court mandated counseling as part of his like probation agreement. Like he got probation, he got 2 years of probation and counseling, and that
But
was
that was but that was from like the state, not from the
yeah,
church.
yeah.
Like I'm wondering what the
I
church
don't
did.
know.
Like did
I don't
Pastor
know.
Boyle do anything?
So, from my understanding, um, Daniel was given a choice. He can either leave church for a year, or he can go up in front of the church and apologize. So
And that was
obviously,
after he was sentenced, right?
yeah, as far as I know.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Do you know how
obviously,
long it took for him to get sentenced?
about 6 months. Because it
So the
was,
whole 6 months
yeah. No, no, not six
that
months,
you
about four
waited.
months. 4 months.
Okay, so for the whole 4 months that you waited, nothing was done within the church to Daniel
I don't think
that
so.
you know of.
I remember him still being there. Like I remember coming back after coming back from my aunt's house and coming to church and he was still there.
What did you tell Pastor Boyle that he did to you?
I don't think I told him anything. I think he read the police report and that's all the information that he got. I don't remember telling him anything. It was so uncomfortable.
What did your parents do and talk to you about, like, during the situation?
My dad wanted to kill him, um, which I think is an appropriate reaction. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my mom my mom is very non-confrontational as a person, and she just wanted everything to be okay. And she listened to Pastor, and Pastor said, well, we need to think about the Cunning family and help Daniel get past this and forgive him. And that's the train my mom got on. So she forgave him. And we didn't really talk about it. Like, my mom and I have never really been close, but, like, that was such a wedge.
Yeah.
Like, that created so much distance because I don't remember her, like, talking to me about it any more than she was forced to if we were in the same, like, space together. Or if she was asked questions by a detective or something like that. Like, I don't ever remember her coming to me and talking about it. And she
Did
might have just
your
been trying to respect my space. I don't know.
did your family like ever talk to you about it? Like the ones that reported it? Did they ever like check in on you or talk to you about it post everything?
I think they wanted to, but not really. Um, I don't know. It felt like we kind of pretended that it didn't happen. Like, at least in public. Like, I went to therapy. I got to go to counseling outside of the
With
church.
Okay.
So I was
Was that
counseling with
helpful?
Pastor Boyle and outside. Yeah, it was. But it ended way too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, I didn't tell that therapist everything. I think that
Yeah.
eventually I probably would have if I'd been able to keep going and, like, building that trust. But, like, I didn't get the
I
opportunity
mean,
to.
you're so young. Like
Yeah.
you need time to be able to trust people, to talk to them, and the
Well,
fact
and it
that you
was
can't
also
even talk to
like,
like
like the counseling with Pastor Boyle, again, like, there are so many gaps in my memory, but the pieces that I do remember were just not good. There was a lot of forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness that was drilled into my head over and over again. You have to forgive him,
to forgive
or,
him.
yeah, like, I have to forgive Daniel or I'm not a good Christian.
What
And I
about him
believe
not
that,
being a good Christian for what he did?
but I never heard anything about that. And Pastor said to me during this time that he was on my side. And I really thought he was because Daniel was gone from the church for a while. So during that time, like, I really thought that he was.
But he never protected you.
No.
What are the
No,
things that he told you guys?
I remember he told me it takes two to tango.
When you were
I think
13?
I think I was 14 at that point.
Okay.
And I just during that, like, I went through counseling with him a couple of times. Like, during that phase of counseling, I just remember it being hammered in to pray and read my Bible and forgive. And those are the things that I remember him saying. And then I remember so clearly the words coming out of his mouth, it takes two to tango. That's like, it's one of those, like, things that's just going to be imprinted on my brain until the day I die.
Well, yeah, he was literally victim blaming.
Which he denied it. I Several years later, after another incident, I remember bringing that up to him and feeling like it wasn't fair because I was a kid. I think I was 17 when I brought this up to him again.
Still a kid, by the way.
Yeah. And he said, "Oh, I never said that. I never said that."
Well, I believe you.
But I remember that. I remember that moment so clearly.
Yeah. Like it's seared in your brain.
Yeah.
Were there any other instances of him saying like seriously horrendous things to you, both of you?
Not that I can remember during that point. There's
Okay.
more later.
Okay.
But
We're
during that
the
first
the
phase,
knocking off phrase, is
that
that
happened
later?
later.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get to that then.
So, yeah, Daniel was gone for a year. And after about and also, like, I will say, like, nobody knew about this.
Okay.
Daniel was gone for a year because he was taking care of his mom. That was the story. Because his
Okay.
mom was sick and his mom had MS and she was getting worse and Daniel needed to take care of her. That was the story that was spread around church.
Where
Not that
did
he
he
did
go?
anything wrong. He didn't. He watched church online, so he was home.
Wait, he didn't go anywhere
Daniel?
at all? Yeah.
Like not to a church, no. He
No,
just
I'm
stayed
saying
home.
like during that year, what did he do?
Oh, he was just
Like what
home.
did he actually do?
I don't
He
know.
was
He
just
was home.
home?
Yeah.
He was in town.
Yeah.
He just wasn't allowed to come to church for a year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, during that time, I mean, that was part of so he was charged with second-degree child molestation, but he pled guilty to assault with a sexual motivation, which is a much lesser charge because it doesn't involve children. So he got 2 years probation. That was his punishment. And then had to leave the church for a year under false pretenses. That's all that happened to him.
So the same man that forces couples to come forward in the church to apologize for consensual sex that, ended up in conceiving a child. He forces these people to say sorry to the church for them having consensual sex.
Yep.
But then he gives an option to a predator, a sexual abuser, a pedophile.
Yep.
He gives him an option, whether either you go away for a year or you say sorry. He doesn't force him to say sorry like he forces the other families to.
And I think that he would also say, like, he didn't force the other families. He probably gave them options too. Say sorry or leave. I
Leave
know
the
of one,
church, right?
yeah, I know of one situation where that was exactly the choice that they were given. You say sorry in front of the church or you leave.
The
Not for a year.
predator was
Leave
given
permanently.
the predator was given a year,
Yep.
not like you leave the church forever. You
Yep.
can come back in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Boyle has grandchildren in this church, right?
Yes.
Did he at that point?
Ooh, he might have.
How is he okay
Yeah.
with having a predator around his family? I don't get it
I don't
at
know.
all. Like, how does this benefit him at all to keep this predator within the circle? It makes no sense.
No, it really doesn't. I don't know.
And literally, like, victim blaming you and then telling you that you need to forgive him. Why?
I tried so
I
hard.
don't understand why
I
he's
don't know.
protecting Daniel so much.
And he did
So
so many times. He chose Daniel every time. Everybody chose Daniel every time.
was Daniel's family like one of the better families in the church or something?
Yeah, definitely. They like I said, Roy was the choir director. All the I think most of the Cunning kids went to Crown, which was Faith's preferred church. Alicia,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel's sister, was my volleyball coach for a while before she got married. Andrew was an usher, and he was later like a teacher in the school. Like, they were very involved.
So for some reason, he favored the Cunnings over your
Yep.
family. Do you think the way that he felt about your father was part of the issue?
I mean, maybe it definitely shouldn't have been, but like, I maybe honestly, like, to this day, I don't know why. I don't. I I have a picture of me in fourth grade at the school, and the abuse was happening during this time. And I look at that picture, and I'm so little, and I'm so cute. Like, I don't know how you don't protect that.
I don't either. I really
Like,
don't, Josie.
I don't know how you don't choose that. I don't know. There's no excuse.
There is no excuse. None. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I wish that these people in charge, like in every way, would have protected you.
Yeah. Yeah, me
I feel
too.
like there were plenty of like instances where they could have made a different decision and it would have protected you.
Yeah.
And honestly, like none of this is your fault at all.
They were
None of it
given
is.
so many chances. Because I'm not even done. Like, there's more with Daniel. And, like, I'm, they were given so many chances to pick me and choose me and protect me,
They,
and nobody
they
did.
could have protected you. They could have. There were so
And it's
many
not
warning
just me.
signs. Like,
It's not just me. Like, Daniel hurt other people after me. And they could have prevented that too. And they didn't.
exactly.
They chose him every single time.
So Daniel was gone for a year.
Daniel was gone for a year.
How is
Um,
how is that year for you?
Awkward. Everybody, I think a lot of people knew that I had something to do with it because I was very clearly not okay. Like, there were moments when, I mean, I would just like start crying randomly, like in church and stuff. Like, I was very
Yeah.
clearly not okay, and the vibe was very off. So I think people knew that I had something to do with it. So I felt very isolated. But after a few months, like, it got a little bit better. And, you know, I started eighth grade. I was playing varsity volleyball, and, things were kind of getting back to a little bit of normal. And then on a Sunday night after service, Pastor pulls me into his office and says that Daniel's ready to come back. And he asked me if I was okay with it. And before I could say no, he starts talking about all the reasons that I needed to be okay with it. He said that
What were the reasons?
the big one was that how can I expect Daniel to get better if he's not in church?
What the
Oh,
fuck?
yeah. That was the big one. And then, more of the same, like, we have to forgive, we have to move on, think of his family, like, they don't deserve this either just because Daniel did something stupid.
Did he ever think about what you were going through at all? Did he ever ask how you were feeling, like what you were going through, where you were in your process of healing? Like,
There was no process of healing. He would ask me if I was reading my Bible, if I was praying, and if I had forgiven Daniel yet.
that's all he would do during the counseling?
Pretty much. And he would
Like
give me scripture
basically
to
just like
read.
basically just brainwash you into forgiving him.
Yeah.
What
And he would give
that's
me
so weird.
scriptures to read that were supposed to help me. And oh my God, I tried so hard. I tried so hard. I can't even tell you how hard I tried to forgive that man for what he did, because
He does not deserve forgiveness.
no, he doesn't. And I have come to terms with that at this point, that I'm not going to forgive him. And I don't have to. And I am at peace with that. A lot of people, especially in the IFB, they say that, forgiveness is about you. It's not about them. It's not letting them off the hook. But in that situation, it was. Like, by me forgiving him, I was letting him off the hook because he didn't face any consequences for his actions.
No.
Ever.
No, he was
So,
favored in the situation. For some reason, the pastor wanted him back as first. It makes no sense. None.
no.
Like,
No.
that the entire time of counseling you, which, like, I'm curious now, like, did Daniel receive any counsel from pastor
I
at
don't
all?
know if he did from Pastor. I know that him and Pastor probably had some conversations. I don't know if it was technically counseling. I don't know either way.
Did his family ever say, like, sorry to you or anything for what
No,
he did to you?
the only thing that I remember is my mom telling me that Alicia, who's my volleyball coach and Daniel's sister, was mad at her brother. But she never
Mm-hmm.
really talked to me about it. And I
Yeah.
mean, I always liked Alicia. I mean, we weren't like super close, I think probably because she was Daniel's sister. Um, but I always liked her. I looked up to her. I liked playing volleyball for her. She was a good coach. Like, I don't know.
We like volleyball,
We like volleyball, yes.
but
um,
um
but no, nobody really ever mentioned it.
I just that's wild to me. I don't there's no getting past the fact that the pastor just like was trying to brainwash you into forgiving him and like literally just manipulating the situation and making you seem like the bad guy somehow when you were a child. You were a child. And he has two daughters. He doesn't
Yeah.
have any sons, right?
No.
He has two daughters. How can
Yeah.
you look at a child and be like, oh yeah, they're definitely in the wrong here. It takes two to tango. Like, I don't understand it at all. I don't care what the Bible says about forgiveness. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Like when someone does something like this, that's unforgivable.
Yeah.
There are sins that are unforgivable in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
agree.
But you can't just you can't just be like, "Oh, this guy murdered someone," and then just be like, "Oh, we're just going to pray.
It's fine.
We're
We're
just
going
going
to
to
pray it
pray.
away.
Sorry, he killed your father, but he's going to come back in a year after because he needs to come to church because how is he going
Mm-hmm.
to get forgiveness or
Yep.
go to heaven?"
Yep. How's it going to get better? So,
What
yeah,
in the
Daniel came
world?
back to church, but he had graduated high school at that point, and obviously, and he came back, and the deal was that he wasn't supposed to be at the school, like, because I went to the school, and he wasn't supposed to be around the school.
I mean, you went to the church too, though.
Well, yeah, I went to the church too, so I, still saw him 3 times a week. That was plenty. But he showed up
Yeah.
at school
That
several
was too
times.
too many times
Yeah,
or three
he
many
showed up at
times.
school several times. Like, I remember there was one, I think it was, we were getting ready for the auction, because we do an auction every year for our school, and we were like prepping for that, and he shows up and he's like helping a bunch of guys like carry stuff or whatever, and
Mhm.
it was on the school side, it was during school hours. I was there, I was walking from, like, leaving a class, I was walking through the gym to the church side to go set up auction stuff, but we were in the gym on the school side, and he's just there, like, walking around laughing with a bunch of his friends. And so I told my mom, I was like, I thought he wasn't supposed to be, like, coming around here. I don't want to see him. Why is he here? So she talks to pastor, and this is from my mom. What she heard from pastor is that he kind of just like yelled at him and said, um, I remember her repeating the words that pastor said, I stuck my neck out for you, to Daniel.
Mhm.
And like, and pastor was mad at him, but it didn't do anything. He still showed up at the school side. Like, he still was around all the time. Like, I never got a break. I never knew if he was going to show up or not. I never knew where he was going to be. Like, I just had to expect him to randomly show up at any point. Like, oh, and that's one of the reasons I was such an anxious kid. Like, I never knew if he was going to show up or not show up, because it didn't matter what rules were in place, he was going to break them.
At this point, did you like after everything that happened with like legally and everything,
Mm-hmm.
were you finally able to kind of realize that what he was doing was abuse? Or were you still kind of in
No,
that trance of like
no.
were you in love with him?
I don't know. I believed that I was. Like, I mean, I definitely wasn't, like, realistically, but I believed that I was.
Yeah.
And I thought the feeling was mutual. Like, he told me he loved me. He told me he was going to marry me. He told me all of these things.
And I think that that's part of probably like your coping too, like
Yeah.
to make it feel okay
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um,
Honestly, I was told that it was abuse by my therapist outside of church and by the judge. So at his sentencing, I was given the opportunity to make a victim statement. And I didn't want to say anything out loud, so I wrote a letter. And I wrote about how sorry I was. I apologized. I told him how bad I felt for ruining his life and how I never meant for all of this to happen, and how I hoped that he wouldn't hate me. And I remember sitting in court and the judge started reading that, and she like stopped halfway through. Well, not even halfway. She got through like the first sentence and looked at me and said, "No, I'm not reading this. It wasn't your fault." I still like I remember feeling a little bit of like maybe it wasn't my fault, but like that very quickly went away after going to the counseling with pastor and after Daniel coming back. Like that
Well, yeah, I
completely went
mean,
out the window.
his counseling seemed very victim blamey, and so it's
Yeah.
like, how are you gonna? And I highly doubt he even like said that it was abuse or that Daniel was abusing you.
Not at that
I
point,
highly
no.
doubt he ever said anything.
He did way after. He didn't
Eventually.
say abuse. He said that he believed Daniel was grooming me. This was, I mean, I was an adult at this point. That was several years after.
So a year goes by. Daniel is in and out of the school, like showing up in and out of the school.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So that was just kind of the norm for a long time. I mean, for several years. Like he was gone for a year, then he came back, and for I don't know, 3 years or so, that was just it was what it was. Like that was just the new normal. Um, when I was 17, we were getting ready for a wedding in the church, and it was the day before the wedding, and we were there, like just setting up, like getting decorations ready, cleaning up the church, all the good stuff, preparing for the wedding. Um, I was carrying something up the stairs, and these were the stairs right outside the teen choir room, like right outside the auditorium between the teen choir room and the gym. And I was carrying something up the stairs, and I ran into Daniel. And he stopped me, and he took what I was holding and put it down. And he pushed up against me and backed me into the stair railing. And we just stood like that for a minute. And I remember being so scared I could barely breathe. I could hear my heart pounding in my head. And he takes my hand. He said, "Follow me." And he leads me into the teen choir room. And he turned the lights off. And he starts kissing me. He takes off my shirt. And I remember asking him, "What do you want from me?" And he said, "I don't know." And then he kept kissing me. And he took off my bra. And I mean, we were in there for 10-15 minutes or so. And I just remember thinking, like, this is it. He's gonna rape me. Like, I couldn't move. And then the lights come on and somebody opens the door, and it's our youth pastor. And he comes in, and I just remember hearing him say, "Whoa!" um, and like I was topless, and I grabbed my shirt and like hold it up to me, and he tells Daniel to come with him, and they leave. And I just sat there, like I put my shirt on, and I just sat there for like 20 minutes crying.
No one checked on you?
No. So, after I stopped crying, I figured that Daniel had gone to see Pastor. And so I decided that I should go see Pastor. And so I walk over to his office, and he's in there with the door open, and I just kind of stand there, and I look at him, and he looks at me for several minutes, and we didn't say anything. And I said, "Well, aren't you going to yell at me?" And he said, "No, I'm not going to yell at you. I just want to know when you're going to knock it off and start making better decisions with your life."
After this man tried to rape you?
Mm-hmm.
He's telling you to knock it off after all these years of the chances that he had to protect you.
Yeah.
Like, as the pastor, he has the fucking, like, power
Yeah.
to protect the people in the church. He has
Yeah.
the power to do that. He chose not to over and over and over again. Not just once,
No.
over and over again.
So many
And he
so many
still
chances.
victim blames you.
Yeah.
You said that you talked to him later on. When was that?
So this was after I graduated. Um so it was like a couple years after I graduated high school. And I went to a service, and Danny was married at that point. And I went because I think my sister was, like, my little sister was doing like, she was singing in teen choir. They were doing, I think it was like an Easter Christmas thing, something special event, like. And I went to the service, and I found out that Dana was a bus captain. So he was around kids consistently. Not even just around kids, he was in charge of them. And that made me really mad, because at this point I was still like, I had begun to question, because I'd been out of the church, I began to question, was it abuse or was it not abuse? Like, I still wasn't fully convinced that it
I just
was
hate that
abuse.
you were like so deep within like the faith and so deep within like the brainwashing of Pastor Boyle that you like still didn't
Yeah.
know if it was abuse or not. And like
Yeah.
it makes me so sick just thinking about him getting away with it, and him, like, both Pastor Boyle, Jake Burkholder, like all of them knowing what was happening and
Yeah.
none of them standing up for you. It makes me sick. And like that they're just allowing this predator to come around. What did he say? So you went and you talked to Pastor Boyle about it?
Yeah, so after that service, like, I was like, "Hey, I found out that Daniel's a bus captain, and I would like to talk to you about it, because I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't think that that's right." And so we scheduled a
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and one day after work, I went to the church and went to his office, and we talked. And I just asked him, why Daniel was allowed to be around children, because I didn't think that that was okay. Um, And he gave me a few reasons. So he told me, number one, Daniel's married now, meaning that, he has an outlet for his sexual needs or whatever.
That makes
Um,
like
yeah.
that makes no sense.
No,
If you're a
no,
pedophile, if you're literally attracted to children, marriage will not fix that.
no.
Like, if you're an abuser, marriage isn't going to fix that. What it's going to
Yep.
do is he's just going to keep abusing and he's
And
going
he
to.
did. Yeah. So that was
So does
reason number
Pastor
one.
Boyle just think that like marriage cures these
I guess marriage cures
sexual
pedophilia.
sins?
I mean, I guess. I don't know. So that was reason number one. Number two was that, well, the people that need to know what happened, know what happened. So the people that needed to know were church leadership. That didn't include the parents of the children that were sending their kids on the bus, because I asked specifically, and he said no, it's
And
the
this is why bus
church leadership.
ministry is so fucked up.
Yeah. Yep. That was another thing he said. He also said that Daniel had apologized and repented, and we should forgive him. He should be allowed to make mistakes and learn from them and get better.
He should be allowed to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
This man is a rapist apologist.
Yeah.
Like, these men
Yep.
they should be allowed to just rape people and be like, oh, sorry, God, I
My
didn't mean to do
bad.
that.
My
And then they're
bad.
fine. Like,
It doesn't make
this is
sense.
what's wrong with like the IFB and wrong
Yeah.
with like strict religious, like, whatever. Like, they cannot be allowed to get away with this stuff. It's
Yeah.
not okay. And it's not something that Jesus can just, and God can just forgive and wash away.
Mm-mm.
Like, there are actual
There need to be
consequences they need to
consequences.
face.
Yeah. It's, I wonder, and I think about it a lot. I wonder if the appropriate actions were taken when he was like 15, how much of this wouldn't have happened?
So much of it,
Like,
Josie. So much of it. Because they didn't do the right thing.
yeah.
They never chose to protect you. They never chose to believe the victim and protect the victim.
No.
So after he tried to rape you, did you tell your parents or did anyone tell your parents?
Pastor told my mom.
What did your mom say?
Well, she slapped Daniel. I remember that. Which, Pastor then told her if Daniel wanted to, he could press charges for assault
What
for
the
slapping
fuck?
him. Yeah. Yep.
You can press charges for him trying to rape you.
Yeah. Yep. Which was never done. Like,
I'm
that was never
sorry,
done.
but how is he still protecting this man?
Yep. Yep.
What the hell?
Yeah. So my parents were told, and
Like,
so the great
Pastor
thing.
Boyle should be the one fucking punching his ass. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell?
So
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
no, you're fine. The extra fun thing about this is that, because I was 17 and, you know, at the age when a lot of IFB girls really start considering marriage, it was suggested that because so many of these things had happened, that maybe it was God's will that we be in a relationship and consider like courting.
Wait. You and Daniel?
Yeah.
So they're counseling you to marry your groomer? and your
Yeah.
abuser.
Yeah.
What the
Yep.
fuck? How many other people
Oh, and
I'm just like,
I
how
ate
many
that.
other people have they
Well, I ate
done
that
this
up
to?
because I had been told for years that, I was not pure after that. That I was, this was going to be something
You're
that my future
ruined.
husband would struggle with, that I was damaged goods.
Fuck that
And if
narrative.
I was like, if I would just be in a relationship with Daniel and marry Daniel, then it would be okay because he's the only one that I had done stuff with or whatever. And that was kind of the logic there. Oh, and I ate that up. I ate that up. I had felt for years so much guilt around this, and so I hated myself. I absolutely hated myself. I just felt so gross about myself and that I was damaged goods, and I believed that. Fiercely believed that. And I didn't think that I was ever going to find a husband because of that. So I ate that up. I was like, oh,
I
yeah, no, that makes total sense because,
and you know that narrative only applies to women.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like he can fuck around with anyone
Mm-hmm.
and not one person is going to tell him he's damaged goods.
Nope.
That is so a rape like a pedophile, a rapist,
Yep.
not damaged goods.
By the way, my husband has never
But a
had an
girl
issue
that
with
was
this.
abused.
Like, yeah. Well, never had an issue with me for this. Like, he's angry as all get out about everything that happened. But he's never looked at me like I was dirty or like I was damaged goods
No,
ever.
because you're not. And that's just a
Yeah.
stupid narrative that like purity culture has. And like
Yep.
for as long as we can remember, women for some reason are put under this microscope of like having to be pure and having to be innocent. And it's disgusting. Like if you
Yeah.
want like I think the whole idea of like wanting us to be hairless and innocent and like youthful, like all
Oh
of
my
that narrative
gosh.
is
Yeah.
gross. Like,
Infantilizing
no,
women is
you should
just
want
another, yeah, it's just another way for pedophiles to manage their urges,
exactly.
honestly. Um, yeah, no.
No, it's so messed up. And I just it literally enrages me
Yeah.
to think about them talking to you that way and telling you that you're like damaged goods and used
Yeah.
goods when like you had no choice in the situation. You were a child. No one
Yep.
protected you. No one did. And they should have. And shame on all of them for not
Yeah.
protecting you. And one day, if there is a God, like they think, if there is whatever after this life,
Yeah.
God is going to judge them. And I hope he does. If there is a God, I hope he fucking rains fire down on them for the
Yeah.
situations that they put you in and the way that they treated you. Because I highly doubt
Yeah.
any type of God of any sort would ever be okay with this.
Not my
Ever.
God. Like, and I
No.
mean, we've talked about this before. Like, I still believe in God, and my God is not okay with that.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, that's been a coping thing for me, is for the last however many years, just feeling completely powerless about this. That's been a coping thing for me, is that one day, even if it's not on this earth, they will answer and they will be
Yeah.
held
They all
accountable.
will.
Like, and that has been a big coping thing for me. And I mean, like, it hasn't always worked. And I will say, because of these situations, because of things that Pastor Boyle told me, I attempted suicide 3 times when I was in high school. I was 15 the first time. Like, how was I not important enough? I don't know. I don't know how I wasn't important enough to him, to them. I don't know how I wasn't worth protecting.
I
I
want
really
you to
don't get
know
it.
that you are worth protecting. They just believe these horrible things that aren't true, and like they use God to cover up all of these horrible things, and like
Yeah.
they should have done their best to protect a child. Like the most innocent person on earth is a child, like, and if I know for a fact there's places in the Bible where it's like if you're not like protecting children, that's like the worst of the worst sins. Like
Yeah, let's talk about Matthew 18 really quick because this is really funny. Like, I don't have the scripture pulled up, but I mean, Matthew 18 talks about if you have an issue with somebody in the church, you should just go to them and talk to them about it. You don't spread rumors, you don't spread gossip. And that verse and that context is used a lot of times to justify pedophilia, like, or abuse within the church because, oh, if you have an issue, like somebody abused you, you should just go talk to them about it and resolve it yourself. And that's not appropriate. What's really, really interesting to me is later in that passage in Matthew 18, or earlier in that passage, I don't remember which way it goes, but it talks about that if you offend a child, a stone should be hung around your neck and you should be drowned. And it is just bonkers to me
exactly.
that, like, the level that they take that out of context and use
Oh
it to
yeah.
justify
Yeah,
pedophilia
they
and
like I know
rapists.
for a fact that like within the Bible, like if you do anything to offend a child in any
Yeah.
way, that's like the worst of the worst.
Yep.
And like it really is. And I think everyone would agree with that. Like
Yeah.
within the church or without the church, like
Yeah.
we all agree that children should be protected.
Yeah.
And it should be that way within a church, especially. Like, what the fuck?
Yep.
You
Absolutely.
make yourself out to be this like holier than thou and like, servant of God bullshit when it's like you're not even protecting your flock or whatever. Like you're
Yeah.
not a good person. And I hope there's a special place in hell for people that protect people like this. Like people that
Yeah.
protect pedophiles, rapists,
Yep.
all the things. Like, I'm sorry, but like I really hope that there's some place for them to go because
Yeah. And
they need to have consequences too.
I've been asked a lot, like, why I still believe in God after all of that, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think that's one of the reasons because I have to believe that they get what's coming to them.
Like it gives you some sense of justice,
It
kind
does.
of. Mm.
Even if I don't get to see it, even if it happens after they die. And again, like I recognize that that's a coping mechanism. And I have full respect for
And
people who
that's
don't
okay.
agree with that. Like that's totally okay. But for
Yeah, and
me,
that's okay for you to believe that. Like,
yeah,
if that
for
makes you
me,
feel
like that's a
better,
big part because I have to believe that they're going to get what's coming to them. I have to believe that they are going to face consequences, even if it's not while they're alive, even if it's not while I'm alive. I have to believe that.
for me, I'm just like, if they believe in this, like, all of this stuff, right? Like, that there's a heaven and that there's a hell and that horrible people go to hell for their sins and blah, blah, blah. Like, and they're doing these horrendous things. I'm like, I just hope it exists for their own sake because then they're just gonna
Yeah.
burn in hell too. So,
Yep. Right.
but people like me that are atheists and stuff, I'm gonna be the one who's burning in hell for some reason. But like, but
Yep.
rapists and pedophiles aren't.
They're fine. Free
They're,
pass.
yeah, they're free pass to
Whatever.
heaven.
We love that.
Um, so was that the last attempt then on Daniel's part?
Yeah.
And how old were you again when he tried to rape you?
17.
Okay, and
17.
then what happened after that? Like with your perspective in life, like you graduated and
Yeah, my last suicide attempt was about a month after that happened. And after that failed, I was like, well, it's been 3 times. Clearly, I'm not meant to die. Okay. So now we got to figure something out.
Can
So
I
I knew
ask
that
you why?
yeah. Like,
Like,
why I attempted?
yeah, like what were you feeling during that time?
Oh, a lot of things. I felt like I was never going to get away from it. Like, I
You
was
felt
never
like
going to
it
get
was
away
your
from
only
Daniel.
escape?
Yeah. Like, this
I feel
was
like
just going to
that's
be the rest of my
something
life. And I didn't want that.
that's something to realize. Like when we talk about suicide, like a lot of times that is the only escape that people have.
Yeah.
And it's a sort of like I know when I've had suicidal ideations, it's because I have a lot of feelings like depression and stuff, and
Yeah.
anxiety that overwhelm me, and it feels like I'm drowning in all these feelings, and like
Yep.
there's no way out, and it feels like you're dying already because of the heaviness of them.
Yeah.
That it does feel like it's the only way.
Well, and I also,
Like it's like done, like to get it
I
just
just also felt
to
like
have it be
everything would
over.
be so much better without me. Like, I was a rebel in high school, and that was really hard for my mom. And
Like somehow it was all your fault kind of thing.
yeah, like everything was. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything right. I just made problems for everybody. Everybody's life would be so much easier if I just didn't exist. And sure, a couple people might be sad for a while, but they'll get over it. I'm not important. That's what was going
Yeah.
through my head. Like, I
And
still feel that way a
honestly, like
lot.
everything that you've been through and like the way that you were treated and counseled and stuff, like I can understand like why you felt that way. Like
Yeah.
they should have never made you feel guilty for the things that happened to you.
I felt guilty for years. I didn't stop. I mean, sometimes it likes to creep back in, but I didn't stop feeling guilty like consistently until, I don't know, maybe like 8 months ago. Like, there's always just been that when I think
Was
about
that
Daniel,
when
I think
like
about guilt.
was that when like we reached out?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of when you finally
When I
were able
started
to
talking to
like
Nathan and everybody else, yeah.
yeah.
When I realized how
Well,
much more there was, that was when it was. When
yeah.
I realized how much more existed at that church besides just me.
Like that it's like it wasn't just you, you weren't the problem. It wasn't you that was
Yeah,
causing all of these things. It's
that was when
just
it really changed. Yeah.
just like the IFB is the issue. Pastor
Yep.
Boyle's the issue. Like they're
Yep.
the issue, not you. And I hope you know
Yeah.
that now. I hope that you're
I
finally
do.
able to like
Like, there are
allow that feeling
definitely,
in.
like, it's still habit. It's still, like, I mean, it's been a habit for, almost 20 years of just feeling guilty whenever I hear the name Daniel or think about Daniel or think about the situation. But, like,
Mhm.
it doesn't come up nearly as often. And when it does, like, I can recognize it and be like, yeah, no, you don't belong here. Bye bye.
Yeah, that's good.
Because things are different now. Things are very different now. I'm angry. Like, for the first time in a very, ever, for the first time in ever, I don't hold any grace for the people that chose not to protect me.
Do you
I'm
have anything
very
to say to
angry.
them?
Hmm.
You don't have to, but like if you have something you want to say to them.
Like if Pastor Roy was watching this right now,
Yes.
I have a lot of things that I would want to say. Whew. I hope that you finally figure out that you are the problem. That's the biggest thing that I would like to say to him. I hope that you finally take some responsibility for what you have done and the lives that you have ruined.
I wonder if there's anything that you'd want to like say to those that are in it right now or those that have been through it.
Oh. If you currently attend Faith Baptist Church in Spokane, you do not have a good pastor. You do not have good leadership at that church. You are listening to a man who has allowed several lives to be ruined by his inaction and negligence. Your children are in danger. There is
Yeah.
nothing that you can say, that anybody can say, to justify being there, listening to that man week after week, day after day, with all the things that he has allowed to happen in that church. There is nothing that you can say to me to justify being there and allowing him to still have that platform. There is nothing you can say that's going to make it okay for him to still be behind a pulpit.
I want to say that I'm so thankful, and I know that our viewers are going to be so thankful for you sharing your story today and just like the bravery that it's taken for you to be able to come out here and do this, and
Yeah, I've rescheduled this a lot of
that it's
times.
been
It was really hard.
that it's been a long time coming for you though. Like it's been
Yeah,
a long time coming for you. And I think that every victim will relate with that and relate with like it's being it takes a long time to be ready to tell your story sometimes,
yeah,
and that's okay. And like when you're ready to share your story, we're here, you know? Like
yep,
you may not be ready now, and you may watch this and be in a different place than Josie is, but when you are ready, we are here for you guys, and we
yeah,
want to hear your story. We want to give you a platform to share your story and know that just because you're a victim doesn't mean that you have to stay a victim forever, and that hopefully our biggest hope is for you guys to get justice and to find some
absolutely.
sort of like freedom when it comes to your
Yeah,
abuse and everything.
I don't, yeah, like I said before, like there doesn't need to be forgiveness. If that's something you want to do for you, then do it, but I don't need to forgive him. And I have forgiven myself for not doing that because I don't need to. I have forgiven myself for feeling guilty for so many years because it wasn't my fault. None of that was my fault. None of that was on me. None of that was my choice. And I felt like it was for so long. And I spent years miserable because they convinced me that it was my fault and they convinced me that it was my choice.
And they almost convinced you to marry your abuser.
Yeah.
Like
If
this it's
if I
crazy.
had gotten pregnant, I would have been forced to co-parent. I probably would have been forced to marry him. No doubt in my mind.
Mhm.
No doubt in my mind. I'm very thankful that didn't happen. But I've thought about that a lot.
Yeah.
And getting out is hard. Like my adult life has been hard. Like leaving was hard. You wake up one day and you have nothing. Like you all of your friends, your family, you have nothing. But after time, you begin building a chosen family. And it sounds cliche, but it's really true. And going through that and taking the time to build that family and to build that network and that support, it's worth the work. Like, it is so worth the heartache and losing everything, because then you get to choose what everything becomes for you. So it is absolutely worth it. I'm very happy with my chosen family.
I think that that sums up your story for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope that this is, you know, inspiring to other people out there. And I'm really proud of you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. I thank you for everybody who listened. This is not easy to talk about, for sure. It's still really difficult. I hope it helps somebody. I really hope. I don't know. I hope it helps somebody. Just not feel so alone.
Well, if you liked this video, please give it a like and a share and subscribe.
Yes, please.
Um, we're just trying to reach as many people as possible just to create a platform for these stories to be shared. And thank you for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Share your story.
If you have been affected by religious trauma or abuse, we want to hear your story.
Even if you're not ready to share publicly, we would be happy to listen and support you on your journey, free of judgment or pressure.
Please email us at cultconfessionskjv@gmail.com to get started.
We believe you.